Hi, I'm Dahlia Burroughs, freelance editor and aspiring author, and today I'm here to flip through my 2020 BuJo. So this has been a highly requested video. I've been asked a few times to show what my January spread looks like. If you weren't aware, I decided to go in the theme of the Call of the Wild. Except there's only one thing I draw worse than moons, and that's wolves. So while it seemed like a great idea at the time, you'll see what ended up happening with this spread. February's spread is much nicer. But I'm going to show you two things in this video. First, I'm going to show you how I set up my yearly BuJo and then how I set up my monthly BuJo. Within this, I'll also show you what I liked and what I didn't like about my spread. So I purchased this A5 dot grid journal from Typo a little while ago, and overall I'm pretty happy with the introduction. It's like a good beginner BuJo diary. However, there are a few things that I don't like. Unfortunately, the dots do not line up, and unfortunately, the paperweight is very light and a lot of things bleed through. So if you didn't see the mess that I made of my actual beginner BuJo for December last year, the blog post is linked down below. It was pretty terrible, and this spread is a lot nicer, but I'm very excited to show you guys February. Just for reference, I also purchased a couple of other things from Typo. Everything was on special, so I decided to go ahead and set up some dual tip brush pens and also some kind of like jelly rollers, but they're, you know, the cheap kind, just to see how they would perform with the Typo notebook. So these Typo Easy Riders are beautiful in color. The only problem I found with these is that there was not enough of them, and also they tend to clog up. This pink one is pretty bad with clogging. Yeah, you see that pink on the edge there? It's really annoying. And then it ends up kind of drying up, and then it doesn't really wipe very well on the paper. These dual tip brush pens are pretty great, I must admit. The only problem is they bleed through the paper, and the end, if you don't use it very often, it stays a fine point. Otherwise, it ends up kind of like dulling, and then the beautiful brush stroke that you get with other more expensive brush pens doesn't really come through. It doesn't look very good. But I got these in three colors. I got the Vibrants, which are more like this purple. I got Neutral, which holds these grays and different colors. And then I got these pastel colors, which are really nice. And there's a big set of them. I'll link everything below that's in this video so you guys can go and check it out. And maybe get some if you've got, you know, better line weight books. So this A5 dot grid journal doesn't actually have the page weight on the website, merely the composition, which doesn't really give you too much information. But it is A5. It was $15 in Australian, and it features over 180 acid-free dot pages. Two of the things that I really like about the outside is that it's quite comfortable. It is a nice color. There is actually this here, but I don't particularly use this. I think I will once I fill it up a bit more, but as of now, I don't use it. And also the little tab. I would have liked to have two of these, but you know, you live and you learn. On the first page, we have this kind of tough paper, which is actually really fantastic. I wish the rest of the paper was this page weight. And basically, as you can see here, you write your name, you know, that sort of thing. And then of course, no one ever uses these pages because they're ridiculous. You can't open them up all the way. So of course I went to the second page. This is where I first used these brush pens, and they didn't go as planned. They're not very consistent, and that kind of bothered me a lot, and they kept going out of the lines, so it doesn't look as nice as I wanted it to. From Typo, I also bought these little like washi tapes. This is a really cool marble color. I love marble, for anyone wondering. And I think it added like a nice little touch to the book. It gave us something to separate it from the rest of the book. I don't like the fact that it has Typo down the corner here, because that does cut off a little bit, and I do use that corner, but you know, it happens. So basically what I did with this page is I wrote down my ultimate yearly goals. Things like, a lot of this actually has to do with exercise like deadlifting more than my body weight. But I do also have things like I want to publish a book, and which I will be this year, and little things like draw a realistic snake. Over the page, I've covered up all of the birthdays so that, you know, people in my life aren't displayed on the page for everyone to see. But this was my year, kind of year at a glance, but not really year at a glance because it's 2 pages. But basically what I did is all the blue is for public holidays, you know, things like Father's Day or New Year's Day, and all the purple are birthdays. So I made a lovely little confusing mistake with this. I ended up writing birthdays out of order. So then I had to write above it, like, you know, it's on the 6th. So it doesn't look very neat anyway. And then we move on to the grid spacing. I thought that this would more come in handy than it actually did. And I think it didn't come in handy because the dots are not the same on every single page. They are different spaced, some are higher, some are smaller. It's just silly. So it really didn't come in handy, but it's going to be good when I get an actual good dot grid journal. And I decided to have this as my yearly quote, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken," because I think it is a very influential quote. Over the page I have my index, and I didn't need to do a yearly index because I believe that this book is only going to do 3 months. So I have enough space to do. I've already done January's, obviously I've started February's. I haven't finished writing down all what's in of February, but this hasn't really come in as much handy as I thought as well. It is handy to flip back and forth to see what page certain things are on if I need it, but other than that, there's not that many pages in between. So maybe if I had a whole year in this book, it might be a lot more useful. Over the page, now this is my bookshelf of books that hopefully I read in the year. I have 50 set out, but I don't think I will read 50 books. Because last year I read, I think, 33 or maybe 34 if I'm lucky, because I just don't really have the time to read, unfortunately, and it's really disappointing. And I read big books, okay? Don't judge me. But so far I've read Every Time He Dies by Tara East and The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. You'll see both of those reviews on my website. That will also be linked down below. Now, I thought that this was a pretty cool idea. I've seen this a few times and I kind of like the way that it looks because you can see at a glance what themes you used, and maybe you could do something different. You know, you might not realize that you've already done something that has mountains and things in it, and then you do it again and that monthly theme looks like a lot like 2 months ago. As you can see, the first one is The Call of the Wild, and February is Traditional Tattoos. Now hopefully this pathetic excuse for a cutout doesn't look too terrible on camera. My attempt to draw a moon was underneath this, and I'm not even going to go there. This was a really cute picture that I found on Google, and I cannot remember the artist who created it, but if I do find them, I will put them in the description bar below. So this was the start of the Call of the Wild monthly theme, and I used this quote: "He had been suddenly jerked from the heart of civilization and flung into the heart of things primordial," because I loved the way that it kind of signified jumping or leaping from 2019 into 2020. I use this washi tape down the side just so I can separate the months, so that when the book is closed I can see where the months align. Next I have a key, and because I'm still new at this, I still find the key really helpful. Okay, here you can see what I mean by the brush pens. They don't really brush very well, unfortunately. They end up too thick and they don't really run across the page very smoothly, which really bothered me. Okay, and this is my, I suppose you'd call it a month at a glance. This is my January calendar, and I really liked this setup. This is really helpful because I can note down, like, you know, what days the bins go out and what color bins are going out, and important things like when Pamela Sparkman released Reverend of Silence, which is a fantastic novel, and that is also, the review for that is also linked below. I didn't use this as much as I thought I would. I used it quite a bit in December last year with my other monthly spread, but with this one it just wasn't as useful apparently. I just used my weekly spread to note down the important things. This is quite possibly one of the most interesting pages that I made because I both used it and didn't use it. I liked having it here to see when I had to pay certain things, and all the colors have, you know, a list down the bottom here. That's why they're hidden, of what I had to pay and all the things like this. This is when I was getting money in. January is typically a slow month when it comes to freelance editing and freelance writing, but yes, so it was handy to note down when I got money and how that attributed to my outgoing costs. I saw this expense page. I've seen a few people do it, and I think that it is actually really helpful. I did get confused between the purchase and the type because I don't think I need both of them. It wasn't particularly relevant, but I do like noting down how much I spent in the month and what I spent it on. So of course, you know, things showed me what things I was spending too much money on. Say if I was spending too much money on repayments or things like takeaway or things like that, I can see, and then I can improve on the next month. This was possibly my most helpful spread. This helped me to actually organize everything and get out my blog posts and my YouTube posts on time. I don't even know how many YouTube posts I posted, YouTube videos I posted this month. I think it was like 7 or something, so you can thank the BuJo for that. This one was also very helpful. I tracked bad habits, I tracked good habits, and also my stress and sleep levels. And then also when I had pain, which I ended up making purple, and when I had my periods. That way I can kind of track when it's going to come about, and it worked out really, really well. So for the good habits, I like to track what days I ate vegan, the days that I worked out, the days I brushed my teeth, put my makeup on, had my vitamin, read, wrote. The therapy means like workout therapy for sore muscles or, you know, joints or things like that. So that involves a lot of pressing on knots and being in pain, but feeling really great afterwards. I also noted down the days that I drew, which I did not do very well with, and also the days I had 3 liters of water. With the poor habits that I tracked, that was obviously takeaway, days I had alcohol, days I spent money, and caffeine. And I think it's pretty obvious from this spread that I'm not giving up caffeine anytime soon. And this is only coffee. This is not including, like if I had tea instead of coffee, I wouldn't put it on here. But unfortunately, I chose coffee over tea every single time. This was my monthly book tracker, and honestly, guys, this was ambitious. Okay, so Every Time He Dies was a really quick, easy read. It's such a fantastic book. I really, really enjoyed it. It's also short. I don't know whether that's because of word count or because I really enjoyed it, but it's short and I loved it. So it was easy to get through. But The Testaments, Skag Boys, The Night Circus, and Lord of the Rings are all very long books. My Kindle is estimating that it will take me 22 hours to read Skag Boys. So while the books are really good, like I'm very much enjoying Skag Boys, the only problem is that it's gonna probably take me the whole of February to get through it. This is one of my favorite looking spreads. I don't like the trees. I didn't do them correct at all, but I do like the shape of the mountain. But it was helpful to see how this correlated with my habits and well-being, and also with my week by week, because that's how I can, you know, judge what is kind of happening with my moods and when I'm feeling anxious and when I just need to stop drinking coffee and you know, don't bring myself to burnout, because it's not a good place to be. So this ended up being my weekly spread, and it is also my generally my weekly spread for February as well. I really like this. So obviously I have the week and then the door and then the other week, and then the rest of the week, and then I've got notes up here and tracking my social media growth here. Down here I noted the weather each day, which a lot of people said that this didn't come in handy for them, but I really enjoyed seeing how hot it got. This is to give you an example. You want to know why we had so many fires? The last day of December was 41 degrees. And then we were forecasted to have rain on the, last day of December, or within the last few days of December, and forecasted to have rain throughout the first week of January, and it didn't happen. We just had blasting hot days the entire time and high wind. Down the bottom, I track how many hours I worked for the day. I also write on each day how long it took me to do something. Say, late December, it took me 2 hours to complete the newsletters that were going out. So I write it there because that way I know where my time was spent. On the next page is how much I earned for the week. So it correlates with these 3 columns. It correlates all the way through until there's a total at the end. I've got that covered up for obvious reasons. This is the quote that I wanted to use, which is a quote by Jack London, who wrote Call of the Wild. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club. And gosh, how true is that? So I decided for that to be my ending of the month kind of quote, so that I could go into the next month with a positive mindset and a proactive, and the word that I like to use is tenacious. I love being tenacious. So I would like to know, do you set up your own BuJo, and what does it look like? Do you draw? Is it minimalist? What do you like to do with your BuJo? Please make sure to comment below if you would like to see any other BuJo related videos, because I'm more than happy to oblige. But that's all from me for today. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this video today. If you have any topics or subjects that you want me to talk about, please let me know below. Again, all the products that I have used for this will be in the description bar. If you want to know more about me or my life or my books or my services, please check out the links below. I'm releasing something very awesome very soon. If you guys saw my last video about my developmental analysis or editing process, and you may have seen that I have a whopping story Bible. It is huge. So I wanted to announce that I have some awesome news for this year. I will be publishing this awesome Story Bible Workbook. Right now it is in the proofreading stages, but if you join up to my newsletter sign up, which is below, you could very well get your hands on a copy for free. Other than that, I will have more of the finalized publication date within the near future, so remember to follow me on social media so that you know what's going on with this workbook. And stay tuned for a video on how I use my Story Bible Workbook to create a full Story Bible. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye!